Hi, everyone. Ooh. Hi. My name is Stella Grizont, and I'm the founder of Whoopa. And today we're going to be talking about bringing people alive. And we're going to be using some of the latest research and science on happiness so that you, as creators, as curators of customer experience, employee experience, can really focus on what it means to help people flourish and achieve the results you're after. So I'd like to introduce you to my grandmother. Her name is Raya, and this is a picture of her when she was obviously much younger. And my grandmother grew up in the Ukraine. And when she was about 7 years old, her village was occupied by Nazis. And so I grew up hearing all sorts of stories about the horrific events that transpired. And growing up, I was, obviously very sad, but also fascinated with how was it possible that one person could engage the minds and the hearts of millions to really be their worst. And so growing up within me, I always thought, well, if one person can engage people to really be their worst, to do things that are unimaginable, then certainly one person can engage people to be their best. And so that's what we're here for today, is to understand how do we engage people to be their best. So the game that I play, this is the game that I play. It's all about helping people activate, be their most creative self, be their most happy, most productive. And I launched my company, Whoopa, to do just that. So we do corporate training on the science of happiness. We work with employees one-on-one. Also, if any of you were here last year, who was here last year? Nice. Okay, I don't know if you took a ride in my ice cream truck. You did? Okay. So we do immersive play experiences as well to engage employees. And so what I've noticed in working with organizations like Google and Johnson & Johnson and startups like Sensely and LearnVest, what I've noticed is that a lot of times when we're talking about engagement, we're not necessarily talking about how to bring people alive. We're talking about how do we get people to do stuff, which is great and totally valid. But there's a real opportunity to achieve what it is that you want to achieve if you start thinking a little bit bigger about what it means to bring people alive. So what does that really mean, to bring people alive? Well, to help you guys understand, I'm going to reference a little bit of positive psychology. For those of you, who's familiar with positive psychology here? Oh, good, nice. So a lot of times people are like, positive psychology as opposed to negative psychology. Not really, but kind of. So psychology, traditional psychology to date, is a deficit model, and it's done a fantastic job of diagnosing what's wrong with people and how to get them from -5 to 0. And positive psychology asks questions like, hey, what's right with people? And how do we get them from 0 to +5? So using the same empirical methodologies and evidence-based tools to ask, what is it that makes life worth living? And how is it that we can help people really become alive? Because we've all had days where we don't really feel alive. We're just kind of running through our routine. We're not really examining our life. Sometimes we're like, what the heck am I doing, right? So in positive psychology, we have some fantastic science that tells us what is it that really makes people come alive. So the theory of well-being, which was developed by Martin Seligman, who's the founder, one of the leading founders of positive psychology, has something called the theory of well-being, which essentially gives us the 5 drivers to human flourishing. So these drivers are what we can actually track and measure to understand how people are doing in their sense of aliveness. And so we have positive emotion, which is like joy, love, gratitude, awe, the good feelings. We have Engagement and flow. So engagement is vital to our sense of well-being. Relationships, which is self-evident. Meaning, which is our sense of belonging to something bigger. And achievement. So why does this matter? Why does it matter for us to really think about bringing people alive? Well, when you focus on bringing people alive, when you focus on human flourishing, you get what you're actually after in the first place, which is greater creativity. Employees with high well-being are 3 times more creative. They're 31% more productive. They're 10 times more engaged. They're more likely to be promoted. And if you're not experiencing high well-being at work, well, employees are costing their companies on average about $28,000 a year in lost productivity and performance. So this isn't just a nice to have, it's a must have. So let's start talking about positive emotion. So positive emotions, they don't just feel good, they actually drive good, right? Very cool study done in 2006 with an eye tracking device had people induced into a positive mood and then had another group of people induced into a negative mood, and then they asked participants to look at a screen. Well, the people who were in a negative mood tended to focus on just one point in the screen. Their eyes didn't really move around. Their focus was very narrow. But when people who were induced into a positive mood looked at the screen, they tended to literally look around the periphery of the screen, and then their eyes went in and out in different areas of the picture. So what does that tell us? That tells us that positive emotion literally and figuratively helps us see more. It helps us see more possibilities, solutions that maybe we're not seeing right now. It helps expand us towards new possibilities. The other cool thing about positive emotions is that they make challenges seem less challenging. So very cool study, another one by Dennis Profit in 2008 at the University of Virginia. He had a group of students. He played positive music to one, like upbeat, happy music to one group, sad, depressing music to another group, loaded up the students with very heavy backpacks, had them look at a hill, at the foot of a hill, and estimate the steepness of the hill. So what do you think happened? Those students who were in a negative mood estimated the hill to be more steep, right? So when we look at our world and our reality, if we're coming from a negative place, we see challenges as much more challenging. So the question for you guys is, how can you inject more positivity into what you do? I call gratitude the gateway emotion. You know, that's a great and easy way for us to inject positivity in our programming, having people focus on what's positive, what's good in their lives. I'm sure at this conference you're getting tons of info on how to inject more positivity. For those of you who want to learn more, I'm giving you all access to my online class where I dive deeper into strategies on how to achieve this, and I'll tell you how to access that later. So, question for you is, how do you design with more positivity in mind? So our second pillar of well-being, the theory of well-being, is flow. Now, I'm sure all of you, as gamification people here, have heard of the term flow. And when we're talking about flow, we're talking about that state of total absorption and engagement, where it's like the whole world drops off and you're like so in the moment that all you're paying attention to is the task at hand. This is like our dream sweet spot, right? As designers of experiences, right? We want everyone to be in the flow when they're engaging with our products, right? So Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who's kind of the godfather of flow, he coined the term flow, talks about how there's a flow channel. So when designing experiences, whether it's for employees or consumers, you want to make sure you're hitting the right balance of skill to challenge. So if you look at this graph, what you'll see is that if you give people too much challenge based on low skill level, they hit a state of anxiety, right? We've all been there, right? We've all been overwhelmed and in that state. If you have people who are highly skilled and you're not giving them enough of a challenge, then they hit a state of boredom. So the sweet spot is to constantly accelerate the amount of challenge to the level of skill that the level of skill of the player, the consumer, or the employee. So my question to you guys is, are you thinking about where your audience is in terms of their level of skill set? About only less than 50% of people are actually using their strengths at work. Their strengths. So one place to start is to think about, how do we identify people's strengths and really challenge them to use them in new and fresh ways? So our third pillar of bringing people alive, of human flourishing, is relationships. So relationships really, really, really matter. In fact, they're the #1 predictor of our happiness, relationships. However, despite the social media friends that we have, like the hundreds of connections that we hold, 40% of people today in America report feeling lonely. 40%. 25% of Americans report having zero confidants. 25% of people have no one to turn to when they want to share good news or bad. Not only does loneliness suck and not feel great, it actually can increase our chances of premature death. In addition to that, which is kind of the worst case scenario, right? But in addition to that, chronic loneliness also affects our decision making. Because if we're coming from a place of feeling lonely, like, oh, I'm not loved, I'm not worthy, what kind of decisions are we going to make in our lives, right? We might choose partners, we might choose foods, we might make decisions that don't really act in our best interest because we're feeling isolated. But here's the thing about loneliness. It's normal. It's normal. The problem with loneliness in America today is we've made it into some kind of bad thing. But all it is a signal that we need to reach out and get some social nurturance. John Cacioppo, really awesome researcher, has a book called Loneliness where you can learn a ton. And also I'll be sharing more research with you in my class if you guys decide to join. But one reason why we're feeling more loneliness than ever before is because we're doing so much connecting online, which while yes, that is connecting, it's also something called social snacking. Sociologists call it social snacking, where you get a little bit of bite, a little bit of taste of real connection, but it's not the full meal. It doesn't give you what you really need. And we know from research that our relationships and experiencing true connection, it's literally like nutrients for our body and our brain, like sunlight, like air, like water. We need other people. And a lot of that sustenance we get when we're in person. So my question to you guys is, what are you feeding your people? Are you continuing to serve them snacks and making it feel like they're going to get the full meal? Or can you offer them an opportunity to get a bite of something really yummy and delicious? How can you help people really be seen? So the fourth pillar of the theory of well-being, of bringing people alive, is meaning. And when we talk about meaning, we're talking about our sense of belonging to something bigger than ourselves. So with meaning, we get a chance to really connect the dots of understanding things of turning events which may have seemed like a struggle at one point and growing from them. When we're experiencing meaning, we're not necessarily experiencing happiness. Those are two different things. And this might have been covered a little bit, I heard yesterday in a talk, but happiness is very different than meaning. Happiness is about our feelings, our positive emotions, which are constantly fleeting, which are constantly changing. Meaning is more lasting. Meaning is about our sense of significance. And meaning doesn't always feel good. right? So does anybody have kids here? Yes, I heard someone laugh. I don't have, I'm expecting, but what I hear from parents is that, hey, it doesn't always feel good. In fact, sometimes you're downright miserable if you're staying up late and the kid's not sleeping and they're saying no. Yet, parents report that that's some of the most meaningful work that they do. So how do we achieve meaning? We achieve meaning when we're in service of others, when we're feeling like we're contributing to something bigger. So how can you and what you do help connect the dots for people to see how what it is they're doing already is in service of something bigger? One small way is every time you ask someone to do something for you, whether it's asking a customer to take an action or an employee to look up a report, help connect the dots of what's the bigger picture in what you're doing. You're not just Googling something for me, you're giving me important information which will then contribute to our being able to do X, Y, and Z. The finer pillar of the theory of well-being is achievement. Having a sense of mastery is critical for our well-being, and you guys know this and do this so well in creating gamified experiences, right? The one piece of research I want to share with you guys is about Carol Dweck's work. Have you heard of Carol Dweck? She's from Stanford, a researcher there, and she did a really cool study with fifth graders in New York City. She had her assistants go into a school and have fifth graders take a test, an IQ test, which was a bunch of puzzles. And for one group of students, they praised them based on their intelligence and on the scores they got on the test. For another group, they were praised based on their effort and how the efforts that they had in trying to achieve, trying to solve the problems. And what she found was that essentially, when they asked the students, okay, you guys did great, da-da-da, we're going to give you another test. This test's a little harder. The puzzles are more challenging. So the group that was praised for their results and their intelligence, only about 50% of those students wanted to take the more challenging test. For the group that was praised for their effort, 90% of those students wanted to take the more challenging test. So when it comes to rewarding and giving people praise, you want to consider, what are you praising? Are you praising the results or are you praising the effort? Because if your intention is to have people to continue to take bigger risks, continue to take on larger challenges, then you may in fact be limiting them by focusing your attention on the end result. So consider how you praise, how you reward, how can you reward along the way? Is there a way you can measure dedication? Is there a way that you can measure intention and attempts, creativity? So those are the 5 pillars of well-being, of what it is that bring people alive according to the latest research in positive psychology. This was like a little bit of a snapshot. So for everyone here, if you want to learn more, I have tons of great research and strategies all packed into my online class, which is called The Science of Happiness, Hacks and Skills to Flourish. It's on Udemy, but everyone here can get it for totally free. It's my gift to you for attending this talk, for being part of the GSummit, for doing what it is you do. So you can access the course for free if you email me directly. My email is here. Can you see it? Yeah. Stella@whoopa.com. Or you can come up here and give me your card and I'll send you the code, the access code. But I strongly encourage you guys to learn more. You're here. This is really critical again. If we all develop cultures of well-being, if we're all creating with the intention of bringing people alive, then we are unlocking unlimited potential. We are enabling people to see more in their lives, take on greater challenges, and live with more joy. So thank you so much.